I'm sorry, Mrs. Wentworth said kindly. She's a tall, lawyer-like woman. I know you guys are trying to enjoy yourselves and have fun, but I'll have to ask you to take down the sign. Guy rolled his eyes, then got up slowly and removed the poster. Cammy said nothing, but loosened the horsehair on her bow and began to pull her violin away. Camilla, I didn't mean you have to stop playing, Dina Wentworth said. A man gave me $1 for playing, said Cammy in a low voice. Mrs. Wentworth smiled again. Well, you certainly are talented, all of you, and you're welcome to keep doing this for free. But when it comes to earning pocket money, Sheila tilted her head rebelliously. Why can't they keep doing it? What's wrong with it? Dina Wentworth looked at us sympathetically. I wish it were a simple matter, she said, but it's not. I could probably get into all sorts of legal problems if I allowed you to continue. The state might accuse me of child labor violations. Sheila stuck to her guns. But what's the difference between this and old babysitting? Timmy or Mark could make money babysitting. That wouldn't be illegal. It's complicated, agreed Mrs. Wentworth. And I'd have nothing to say if you went across the street from the hamlet and did your performing there. But I've got to be careful on the land I own. Another problem, she went on, is that downtown dozens of street people make a living by playing musical instruments or begging for money. Quite a few of these people have started coming out to the Friend to Friend Center for clothing. If they happened to wander through here and saw Camilla playing her violin for money, they might decide to panhandle in our gazebo, and our shoppers would find this very uncomfortable. Sheila's face wore a discontented look. I wish. I'm really sorry, said Mrs. Wentworth. As you know, we're having a fair here at the hamlet in a few weeks, and I can't take the chance of any unpleasant publicity. She glanced down the street, past Ye Old Bookstore, and I knew what she was going to say, especially since poor Polly's pantry is just moving in. Sheila snorted in amusement. Who'd ever name a store that? Mrs. Wentworth looked at her in surprise, not quite sure what to say. We're lucky to have Molly bring poor Polly's pantry to the hamlet, she finally said. Molly Wang, the owner. I guess you haven't met her yet. She's moving out here from downtown. She tells me that the gangs were getting too oppressive. They were starting to ask her to pay protection. What's protection? Guy asked. Means that the gangs would promise to leave her alone if she'd pay them a monthly fee. Chills ran down my back. Wow. So you can see that Molly might be nervous about street people suddenly showing up here at the hamlet. Mrs. Wentworth sighed. I really hate to have to burst your balloon like this, but I need to think of the interests of Country Hamlet first. After all, it's your parents who have to make a living here. Wait, Sheila's face wore a look of intelligent concentration. What about this, Mrs. Wentworth? Why don't we let Mark and Cammy and Guy keep on with what they're doing, but have them donate most of their money to the Friend to Friend Center? Great, I said. Sure, Guy chimed in. We could give like 80% to the center and keep 20% for ourselves, for supplies and things. Dina Wentworth thought for a long moment. The rest of us waited breathlessly. One thing is for sure, she finally said. I'll have to take this up at the next County Hamlet Merchants meeting in a couple weeks. Shouldn't be just my decision. She thought some more. I guess maybe I could allow it until then. Cool. Guy said in relief. With a couple of conditions, Mrs. Wentworth added quickly. First, you need to add something to your poster saying that most of the proceeds go to the Friend to Friend Center. Second, you'll need to have a padlocked donation box with a slot in it. I can get Dad to make me one, Cammy said. And, continued Mrs. Wentworth, make sure you have some sort of brochure from the center so that people can learn about it. Thanks, Mrs. Wentworth, said Sheila, smiling her best model smile. Remember, this is just for a couple weeks until the merchants discuss it. Just pray that we don't get any panhandlers here. I wasn't sure whether Mrs. Wentworth was a religious person, but I said, we'll pray, and Guy shot a sarcastic glance at me. She said goodbye and walked toward poor Polly's pantry. Thank the Lord, breathed Cammy. What did the Lord have to do with this? Inquired Guy. Thank Sheila. He got up and gave Sheila an exaggerated bow. Thank you, Shell. Sheila, who seemed to be mulling something over in her mind, glanced at him and blinked. You're welcome. We should have Sheila be our treasurer, Cammy said. After all, she works at the center. Sure, I agreed. That would be perfect. Will you, Sheila? Maybe, she said, if we get a padlocked box, and if Mrs. Horton's the only one who has the key to the padlock. Good idea, Guy agreed. And, Sheila continued, we've got to have an account book like they've got over at the center to keep the donations straight. Even better would be a spreadsheet program. Mrs. Horton wants to get all our clients on computer by the end of the year. Mom might have an account book, Guy said. I'll go check. I've got to go too, Sheila said thoughtfully. Picking up her suitcase, she wandered off. Cammy and I hung around for probably 20 more minutes. We talked a little bit about Guy and his lack of faith. We decided to pray for him. See you tomorrow, I told her. Just 4 more days of school. Right, she said, picking up her violin again. A dollar bill fluttered out of the case. She picked it up and put it back. I headed toward the outdoor access restrooms behind Mother Brown's. Wow, I thought, this might turn into some pretty good spending money this summer. Let's say I did 10 caricatures a week. $5 times 20 sketches would be $100. $80 goes to the center, which leaves $20. I'd give Guy, what, 5 because he's my agent? And he could even juggle to attract people's attention. That'd leave 15 for me. Cammy could be on her own, or we could just pull all the non-centered cash and split everything evenly. Big money for me. I turned the corner and walked toward the men's restroom door, placed my palm on the metal plate and pushed it inward, hard. The door swung open and I stepped through. A couple of guys were standing at the sink, and I began to move around them to the right, only to get the shock of my life. They weren't guys. They were women. 2 middle-aged women. One of them screamed loud.